Hello, everyone. We are so glad you are joining us tonight or in the morning, depending where you are, for Ask Us Anything, put on by a panel of global GEG leaders. We can't wait to share with you today all the answers we have for the awesome questions that have been posed. But before we do, I want to introduce you to the team. So we will go ahead and if Jenna, you will go ahead and kick us off. You're muted, Jenna.
Isn't that like 2021's tagline too?
Of course.
I'm Jenna Ashley. Yep, there's the tags. I'm Jenna Ashley. I'm a Google certified trainer and Google certified coach, and I'm also a high school math teacher and administrative candidate.
Awesome. Ooh. Mel, you want to kick us off next?
Sorry, I just had what a great intro. I'm Mel / Melissa. Okay, sorry, I'm not usually like that. Or maybe I am. Sorry, I'm Australian, but I'm in Cali, Colombia. I'm a mathematics teacher at an international school down here. So, greetings.
Maria?
Hi, I'm Maria Etheridge, Lakes Entrance, so regional coastal Victoria. I'm a primary STEM teacher right across P to 6.
Awesome.
And also Google Innovator and trainer.
Hey, girl. Hey. All right. Pili, what about you?
Hi, my name is Pilar Hernandez. I am from Monterrey, Mexico. I am a 9th grade chemistry teacher, Google trainer and innovator, and very happy to be here.
Happy to be here, she says, ladies and gents. All right, Rick, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Rick Ballou. I'm, I guess, Google certified trainer, Google certified innovator, and certified coach, blah, blah, blah. I teach 5th grade instrumental music, which is real fancy way of saying beginner band, and I'm in Minnesota, USA.
That is awesome.
The North Pole, as sometimes it looks like.
The high today was -5 Fahrenheit, so it's awful here.
You say awful. It could be awesome. Tell us, all of you in the chat, please introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from, what you do, and is it as cold as it is where you are compared to Rick? All right, we're going to bring our screen back up. I just wanted to point out that we are comprised of a bunch of different countries, right? And, our expertise spans from primary to secondary. And, all of us feel really, really privileged to be here. We believe that, everything works when we work together. In fact, you probably have seen on Twitter from many of our tweets, the hashtag Better Together. And we truly believe that. And so we hope today that by the end of this, not only will maybe you get something out of it, but also we can enhance and expand our PLNs. You could see all of our Twitter handles linked down below with our names. So please reach out and follow us. And we'll remind you of that a little bit later as well. Okay, it looks like Abid said it's currently -2 degrees Celsius. So I think Abid might win that one. But still, and he's always talking about snow. So I don't think he hates it. What do you think, Rick?
Must not. It must be his thing. Good for him.
Yeah, not cool. All right. I am Shannon Moore. I'm going to be moderating tonight, so I'm going to keep the conversation moving right along. I am a proud Adobe creative educator and a Google trainer. I also just recently started a podcast, so I'm going to plug that with Becky Calling and Georgina Dean, 3caffeinatedcoaches.com. And we're going to move right along. Our goal or objective tonight is we are really going to answer questions about the pre-lesson process. So in the past, our last streams, we have spent a lot of time really diving into random kind of questions that have been posed about EdTech. But tonight, we are going to focus on pre-lesson process. And our goal is hopefully we can discuss how we can leverage EdTech tools to encourage efficiency in the classroom, because I think my panelists here, co-panelists here would agree that, efficiency is necessary. Before we kick it off, though, we are so curious. I am a Hamilton fan, and so I'd like to know, on the Hamilton scale down below, 1, 2, 3, how you feeling tonight? Share in the chat. Let us know where you're at, and maybe, are you a 1 and why, or a 2 or a 3? We'll give you just a few minutes to do that, and then we will transition. Let's see. Pili, where would you say you fall on the Hamilton scale?
I'm gonna agree with Mel in the chat. Number 2 after anything that Rick says.
Hey, he keeps it bright and shiny, but that face of like, did he just say that? Definitely came through.
Definitely comes.
Perfect.
Rick, would you like to respond to that?
I guess that makes me a number 1 all this time. So
Hey, yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling number 1 too. I'm really excited for what we have tonight, and looks like we have in the chat some 2s, some 1s. Awesome to hear. Love it. And if you're excited, let's just jump in, shall we?
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, we are going to be talking about lesson plan design. It's all going to be the pre-lesson plan. As we continue and through this live stream, if you have any questions, anything at all, even if it doesn't pertain necessarily to what's being discussed, but it pops into your brain, go ahead and pop that in the chat and we'll pause and we'll answer it. The format tonight is going to be, we're going to showcase some EdTech tools that we found valuable based on some questions we've been asked. And then we will take some time just to chat about it. And maybe you can gain something from it, maybe you won't, but nonetheless, we're glad you are here. So to kick us off, we are going to jump over to Maria. Maria.
Hi. So what I would like to talk about is for people that maybe are just transitioning from paper-based planning into digital or electronic planning. And they could start with looking at Google Docs versus Google Sheets. Both of them have pros and cons, naturally. And I guess it also depends on what year level you're planning for. The benefits of Google Doc, if particularly, I guess, early primary, where you're looking at a lot of pictures and video, that sort of cosmetic prettiness is better suited in a Google Doc layout. It's really, I think, a very important thing to look at using the most of the headings. And so you've got your table of contents, so you can click through your whole planner a lot easier. When you go to Sheets, the benefit of that is I prefer Sheets. It's a tab format, so I can have a tab layout for every subject, and I can have my timetable on the first tab, and then I can hyperlink everything from my planner into my lesson plan. As you'll see there by the GIF, it just gives you some ideas.
Awesome. That's great. And guys, we just put in the chat the bit.ly. If you want to follow along on the slide deck, please do so. Maria, before we transition to a whole panel discussion about this, what is the value? You have insert video or insert graphics there. What is the value you would say of being able to insert video into these documents?
One, it gives you quick access, so you can just work straight off your planner. I often share my screen in my classroom, but also if you're peer planning across a year level, the other teachers know exactly what you're talking about, because you can have examples of what either the expected outcomes for the students or what you've got in mind of how you're going to teach that lesson.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next one. This next one is really going to focus on another kind of EdTech tool that you can leverage for planning. So Jenna, would you like to share with us about Chalk's Planboard?
So Planboard is actually great because we just started using it, a couple of my teachers and I, but you can set up your semesters. You can pre-block out dates where school's closed. You can set up your units in advance if your pacing allows you a certain amount of time, and you can move your assignments and your work freely between different dates. But probably one of the best things is it links to Google Classroom, so I can set up my rosters. And one particular thing we're doing with distance learning for our students that are virtual is we don't mark them absent for a certain number of days after that class period. So say you're supposed to come to Zoom on Monday, but you don't. You actually have 5 school days here before you're marked absent. If you do the assignment for that day, it's the same as if you came to Zoom for attendance purposes. Obviously, nothing replaces coming to Zoom and interacting. But I can go through and mark, okay, Sam wasn't here today, Scott wasn't here today, Kaylee wasn't here today. And then I know who to go back and specifically look for work for to reconcile my attendance, which has been very helpful because those are, legal documents. But I also like it because I can plan out my whole unit in advance, and I can actually tie it. It's got all of our state standards embedded in it. Common Core is an option. Virginia Standards of Learning is an option. I'm in Virginia. And I can link things straight from my Google Drive, so I don't have to make a copy and go put it somewhere else. And it makes it much easier when I actually go to put something in Canvas or put something in Google Classroom. They also have a really great feature called Markboard, which is still run by Chalk, but it actually ties it and you can do your assessments in there too and link it straight to your assessments. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. If you check out the webinars that are linked in the slideshow, the bit.ly's in the chat, they did some recently that really showcased the Google Classroom connection and how to really make the best use of it.
That's awesome. And you mentioned, Jenna, that you had students virtually, but also I'm assuming on site. Mm-hmm. And this is new to all of us. Do you feel like maybe this helps kind of keep your everything kind of organized? Because I know a lot of people have struggled with that, teaching both sets of students at the same time.
And that's actually one thing we've liked is we have it split. So we have our A track, which is our kids that are in the building Monday and Wednesday. And then we have our B track, our Tuesday, Thursday, and our virtual kids Zoom on B days. So I can actually set up my plan to where, okay, Monday we're on one topic. Tuesday I'm doing the same topic with my virtual and my B track. And I can keep myself copied over so we stay where nobody gets ahead of anybody else.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something that I know schools have struggled with, that we've heard that idea of you have hybrid and you have mixed A and B tracks, not getting too far ahead, because that's just a mess for planning and assessing and all that. So, all right, cool. All right, team, let's go ahead and chat a little bit about this idea of pre-instruction planning. I'm going to pose a question out there and I'd love anybody in the panel to answer, jump on. But the question that I have is, what is the value of having a tracker, like an online EdTech tracker or planner, versus just having it paper pencil?
I'm gonna just jump in here and say that I don't like paper and pencil anymore. In 2019, I pretty much gave up all handwriting, and mostly it was because I'm really bad at it, to the point where when I would write stuff on the whiteboard, my students, the next class would go, "Oh, which kid wrote that?" And so I just don't write anymore if I can avoid it. And so keeping everything digital has really been my goal. And I love the idea of having a tracker like this for attendance and all those things. And something you mentioned, Jenna, I wish my school district, and again, selfishly for my son, who you may have seen just hand me an Arizona iced tea off camera that smelled really weird. Anyway, he's like, "Here, smell this." I'm like, "I'm on camera." Anyway, so
teenagers,
right? Anyway, if he forgets to click a button each day when he logs in for school, he's marked absent, and I get a phone call about it. And he's there, like he's in every one of his classes. I'm making sure that he is, because I teach in the same district, so I'm making sure that he is. But if he forgets to click check in each day, I get a phone call about it. And that's, I wish we had something like what you're doing, Jenna. I think that's fantastic. And I love that you're saying that's built into Chalk, that you can keep track of stuff that way.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool.
With your Google Classroom. So it
I wanted to ask you about Chalk. I tried to, log in. I made an account and I just couldn't figure out fast. And so I thought, like, maybe for next year. So do you think it's a steep learning curve to know how to handle it, Jenna?
I think we're all a little overwhelmed with so many new tools that we've gotten to the point where if we don't understand it, exactly how to use it the second we start, we're like, nope, I don't have time for this. I think if you are feeling overwhelmed, and I think a lot of people are, it's something to look at and get used to, or maybe just use a couple of features of, and then as you start planning for next year. That's totally okay.
Is it free?
It is.
Okay, so I'm
Hey,
gonna try
we
it.
love
All
free.
free.
Maria, what's up? Go ahead, Mel.
So I'm using Chalk myself, or Planboard for myself, but I'm not sharing it with my staff because it's still for them, the adjustment using Word and Excel. And I had created, last time we were in remote learning, an Excel spreadsheet for check-in, and a Google form that went to Google Sheets.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah. But I love that I can do the attendance with Chalk, and I love that I can bring all my standards in. So it's a check for me that I'm meeting all the criteria.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point. I think a lot of people sometimes, like on the paper pencil, it isn't as efficient. I mean, if you can link standards, that's exceptional, because then you can have like a snapshot across a unit of like all of the standards you're hitting and ensuring that you are meeting the standards that you're trying to meet. And I bet then you can even take it a step further and link the skills as well, which is really, really cool. I have another question for you guys. So that just popped up. What else, if not plan book or not docs or sheets, because it may be overwhelming or just not your style, you're not a fan. I use Google Docs myself. What else could we use? What other EdTech tools are out there that we potentially could use as a online planner, and an online planner that we could then also have the next year, right, to reference back to see what we did.
Digital Post-its. No, I'm kidding.
If you saw my computer right now, you would be amazed at how many Post-its I have around the monitor. So don't you ever joke about Post-its again, please.
No, they're an important thing. I get it. I'm in Minnesota, home of 3M. Thank you for keeping them in business. But yes.
I got you.
I do like the paper and pencil. I most of the times do it twice. I do it in paper pencil and then I pass it onto the computer. But that's because I like writing. Like, I don't have a pretty handwriting, but I like writing things down. And I started when I started teaching, the school that I started at, they did their planners. They had these already like institutional type of notebooks where you would fill it in by hand. And then when I changed schools, where I've been for all these past 12 years, they already did it on, at that time it was Excel, now it's Google Sheets. But I think what, like COVID and a little bit before that even made changes to is that now we think more online than before when we were at the school. And so, like Maria says, like linking things that you have handy, that you don't have to go into the computer and look for things anymore for class. You already have it there since you're planning. And that's the advantage from when you're doing it on paper, no? Because you have the things right there. You just click on it and, to present it or to share it with the students. So that would be like a super big benefit of doing things digitally.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And I know that I like live and die by those links because I'm using at least 3 links. I like to give my students we use Schoology as our LMS. And I like to give my students like the links to the actual assignment, not necessarily say like, okay, let's get on Schoology. Because sometimes it's more efficient for me as an educator when I'm trying to go through the lesson and we're, live on Zoom, for me to just link in the assignment rather than say, okay, you're going to go to the Schoology page and you're going to go find a titled this. And you know what I mean? So they can just click in the Zoom chat and off we go. We're ready to rock, Mel, you do an interesting thing with I'm going to put you on the spot here, so be ready. But you do an interesting thing with your level planning partners where, you kind of go through via like Loom and share your like lesson for that day. And I find it, as like you shared it with me, and I find it valuable. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that process?
Okay, that's really random. I don't really actually do that often. I know. Okay, so sometimes as I teach grade 9 and 12, by the way, I know I didn't mention that at the start because I was having a coughing fit. But anyway, with my grade 9 partner, I do sometimes, like if I'm like, what about this idea? I don't know if it's actually okay or not. I do a loom of like, just to show him like, okay, this is what my plan is. These are the activities. This is what it looks like. Because obviously, like every week, like with my team, I do plan with my whoever else is teaching the same year as me. But we don't discuss like the lessons in detail, like exactly like what activities and stuff we're going to do. So yeah, if I have an idea for a lesson or something and it's sort of, well, I haven't really talked about it before and I can't really explain it in words, it's sort of easier to do a loom style thing. So that works out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's genius. I think that you don't give it enough credit, but you know, Maria mentioned like in the sheets and the docs, you know, you can link those videos and insert those videos. And I think sometimes it's one thing to be able to just show your lesson or what you're going to do with like your team, right? Your professional learning community, the one you work with at team level. It's a whole other thing to walk them through. I find it especially beneficial for those that are new teachers or newer teachers, right? To see, okay, what does somebody who's maybe been doing this for a bit, how exactly are they navigating this slide deck, right? Or how exactly are they navigating these ideas? So just a good thought. Yeah, Maria.
But also, as we're going to go back to virtual again as well, you're not always in the same space. So you've got to supply as much information as you can to other teachers to show your thinking, because that's what you have to do now, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have a mention in the comments by Tasha. You know, she uses Google Slides for her planning, and Mel followed up and said that's interesting. And it's interesting to say she mentions this idea of, you know, using slides so she can move around the lessons. So changing it to paper form and using it that way. Yeah, I think that there is a benefit in that for sure. Because you can just readjust and drag. So if you're planning out like a unit, I'm assuming, Tasha, or maybe you can share a little bit more in the chat, but if you're planning out a unit and you have lesson, it is a pretty easy just to move the slides up, down, and around to ensure that you're staying on track. That's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, guys, any last conversations about pre-instruction planning before we transition?
Nothing comes to mind.
Are you sure, Pilly? I'm just kidding. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get back into it. So next up we're going to move to a pre-assessment, and Rick is going to go ahead and kick us off.
Cool. All right. So I think pre-assessment is kind of important, especially for lesson planning. Something that I sometimes don't take into account is students' prior knowledge. And if you can jump into a lesson and already know where the baseline is, that saves an awful lot of time. And so I think a really important way of doing pre-assessment, and super easy way, is to use a Google form. We're all Google folk here, right? And so we may take for granted the ease of producing a Google form, right? But if you are someone who is not terribly familiar with Google Forms, I've linked here on the slide deck a pretty great video by it'll come back around there, that lady who has a pretty good YouTube channel that talks all about Google stuff, and it's very user friendly, and talks about how you can create a Google form. Obviously, what you need to do when you create said Google form is enter your own questions, but it's a way for you to find out what they already know, right? And so, or find out where the gaps in the learning are. So if you're coming into it saying, all right, we're gonna like use my band world for an example, okay? So they already know treble clef. I'm gonna start with that assumption, and then I give the pre-assessment form and find out, oh, they don't actually know treble clef. Well, time to back up 3 steps so I can go forward at least 1. So you can start there. Or if you've already planned to teach treble clef for the next 3 lessons and they already know it, you've lost them on day 1. So it's really important to have that pre-assessment going ahead of time so you know what you're stepping into, so to speak. And then something that I just discovered now through Global GEG and various conferences I've attended in my sweatpants, because that's what we've been able to do now. I love traveling, but I love also being able to do this from my bed, is soft skills. And John, is it John? I always say his name wrong. Cipro? Copero? You guys know who I'm talking about?
Caripo.
Yep. Johnny C has this whole thing on edu protocols, and you would then, I'm linked it here, but with pre-assessment and regular doing things prior to the lesson and throughout the lesson, you can start finding out and teaching those soft skills little by little, so that by the time you get to the actual, I'm a big project-based learning fan, right? By the time you get to the project-based learning thing, through your soft skills pre-assessment, you could have taught them how to use the tools without them knowing it. You can totally fool them into understanding how to use slides. You can fool them. I mean, it's coming off as mean saying we're fooling children to learn, but I mean, we kind of are, right? Like it's all a magic trick. Ta-da, you learned something. And so with the right protocols, we can fool them into knowing the soft skills they're going to need, so that when you say, okay, your job is to produce a 30-second or a 3-minute documentary explaining the importance of, the Oxford comma, you fooled them. They already now know how to do the Wii video, how to use the slide deck, and how to speak over it, because you fooled them into it with the right edu protocols. And I think that's built into the pre-assessment, sort of, right? It's more happening during the lessons, but by the time you assign the thing that you want them to do, oh, what do you know? You already know the tools. And that those edu protocols are so great at doing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So we're going to move into another conversation with pre-assessment here. And I want to pose this question. We've all heard in our credential programs, in our teacher prep programs, this idea of like how important formative assessments and summative assessments are. Why? I'm curious to the panel, why are formative assessments, in your opinion, why is assessing across a lesson or a unit important along the way? I mean, you kind of mentioned it with the gaps, but I want to hear from someone else.
Well, in my case, if I may, I teach chemistry, and by the time they get to me, they have seen a little bit of biology, a little bit of physics, but they've never seen anything related remotely to, how chemistry is. So following along a lesson and doing little assessments on the way, before summary one, lets you know, if they do it honestly, which is always a challenge, lets you know which parts they understood very well, which parts they are having trouble with, which parts I should reteach or focus on. So the problem, like right now that I'm having with this group that I have this school year, is that we've been remote since March, right? And so these kids are in between tired of being online, a little bit depressed from not being with friends, and it's very hard to get them interested and engaged. It doesn't matter how many different ways you do things, it's difficult. And so for them is the law of the least effort, the minimum effort. As long as I don't have to do much, maybe I'll do it. And one of the things that they like to put their efforts in is on, she's my sister. Thank you. One of the things that they like to put the most effort in is in sharing answers, which not necessarily are going to be the right answers, and it's been difficult to convince them to be honest in their assessments, even if they're formative, even if I give them time to check it in your notes. Sometimes they don't even do notes because we're not checking. We can't. I'm not going to go to their houses and do that. So it's a problem. So I've been trying something that has proved useful. I've been using Flipgrid for them to do a video to explain a certain thing. So I ask them a question and they have to explain it. The first time I did this, it was for a topic which is more or less confusing, which is the quantum mechanical model, like the latest explanation of the atom. And I gave them 15 minutes to do it. It was a quiz, so I gave them a certain amount of time only. You have to answer these 3 things. You can prepare in 10 minutes what you're going to say, and in 5 you're going to record. And then I found that a lot of them took them as questions. They just Googled the answers and just repeated on camera. The ones that did know about it were able to explain, and the ones that didn't, it was obvious. And the next time was when I've been like, this was last week. I tried to teach them how to write formulas and names of compounds. And every time we do exercises, they would know the answer. Because you can just open up a tab and Google up, the name of the compound, and they get the answer. So I gave them, now this time I gave them a script. And so I gave them a script with fill in the blanks of like theoretical things about compounds. And then I told them in between the script, like, they were supposed to read it like they were themselves. No, so it's like, now I'm going to explain how to name some ionic compounds. And then I gave them like formulas, and they had to explain how they do it. Obviously, like 95% of them just gave me like the answer, but not the how to. So it's like super obvious who knew and who didn't. And that let them know, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to see that so that I can teach you, or put you in the right direction. And so it's been kind of useful to see them, like, because how they say, like Einstein said this, like, you learn when you can explain it, or something like that. So I've been using that.
That's great.
And it's proven useful, but it's not getting them good grades. That's
Yeah.
And that's
Here's
where
the thing.
formative comes in, though. Oh, sorry. That's
No,
where
go for it.
That's where formative comes in, though, right? Like, if this was a summative, yeah, they bombed it. But if you're using this as formative as it goes along, you're getting them to go, oh man, I guess I better understand this, huh? So, and that's kind of the point of formatives. If, in my opinion, it's for you to let you know what you need to teach, but it's just as much for them to be able to go, oh man, okay, so I didn't know that. I guess I better learn it. And as long as you don't put too much weight on formative, I think it's a super important tool for getting them to. I mean, I'm also of the opinion that grades are terrible and should just go away, but that's for another thing altogether. But if we gotta have grades anyway,
I had to use the grades and to give them some weight, because otherwise they wouldn't give it importance. They're 15-year-olds, so
yeah, totally.
it's like,
yeah.
oh, it's not important. I don't care. So
that would be a
right now they're
huge
failing.
culture shift for sure. I have another question. I don't want to just move on from assessment, because I think assessment is legit where teachers find that struggle, right? I mean, we're all still trying to figure it out. One of the buzz kind of ideas that's around right now is this idea of alternative assessments, right? Not doing your typical, like what we're used to type assessments, but rather come up with something else that allows students to be really innovative and maybe flex their creative muscles a little bit. So I'd be curious to see, what are some alternative assessments maybe that you guys have used, or some other platforms that have allowed kids to kind of struggle through that inquiry process a little bit more?
So one of my fellow teachers at my school came up with the most brilliant idea. We are doing, one of our geometry teachers started it, and then us algebra teachers have picked it up and adapted it to our own. And it's going to be a travel blog site done with Google Sites, where each unit, as we go through it, the kids have to do a different assignment that relates back to our topic. So we just finished writing algebraic expressions. So they have to come up with a list of, where they're going to go, all the things they're going to need, all the money they're going to need, and they have to figure out, okay, things, I'm going to give myself $25 a day for food and $20 a day or whatever to rent a car, $100 a day for lodging. And then they have to combine all of those things that are a daily charge into, that's my X, all these little, 20X and 25X and 100X. And then they're one-time things, if you're going somewhere cold. One of my kids decided he wants to go to Iceland, and he wants a $150 down jacket for this trip. So, okay, you have to add that in your budget. And so it's working on those budgeting skills, but it's also working on those writing and expression skills and translating what, verbal expressions into algebraic expressions and actually applying it so that it's not a one and done. So they don't just forget it. Okay, I took the test, I don't need it anymore. And then come May when we take an SOL, they're like, I forgot all this. They're actually applying it over the course of the whole semester.
That's incredible. That's really absolutely brilliant. In fact, you should be putting that together and sharing that out on Twitter, because I think a lot of people would benefit from that. And in addition to the fact that they have to really apply that application, they now have a space where they've put it all and they can go back and keep referencing. And so I think that that's incredible. Great job. Mel, I'm going to throw it over to you now. So you use Whiteboard Chat, and you have been using that pretty regularly. I know you're an ambassador for them, a pro. She taught me, ladies and gentlemen. Can you talk to us a little bit about whiteboard.chat and how maybe you're using it in your own classroom these days?
These days. Well, these days indeed. Okay. Whiteboard Chat, if you haven't heard about it, is quite a powerful tool, which you can do basically anything you can possibly think of with. But okay, we're talking about pre-assessment though. I mean, you can prepare boards and have random questions on there, and you can see what kids are answering, or in live time, you can see all the kids drawing on their boards. For me, because I teach maths, it's so much easier to see all their work and draw on their boards at the same time, and quickly drag reward stickers over and stuff as well. And I know Steph Rothstein said she hasn't given a test in 10 years, but okay, Whiteboard Chat, you can give little quiz thingies in there as well that are auto-correcting, and it'll mark it for them and then give them a firework thing, if they get them all correct. And they can keep correcting their stuff, or you can remark it for them as well. But for me, it's really good because you can just see, if you just ask them one question and you can put a timer on there, maybe it's just 1 minute. Okay, just tell me what you know about this one thing. Maybe it's just one word. I asked them the other day, what is the word exponents? Okay, yes, so interesting. I know exponents are the best thing in your life. But anyway, it's just okay, what does that mean to you? And so they could draw, okay, what does that word mean? Because a lot of them I don't know the definition of that. And I was well, you can draw it. Okay, you go and draw the things. Okay, and then I can showcase their boards to each other. But they're anonymous, so the kids don't know whose boards I'm showcasing. So I think that's good. It's really good for a teacher and also for the students. For the teachers, really fast, really quick, just to be able to see what they're doing immediately. And then for the kids to feel that they're not being spotlighted necessarily publicly, because maybe I'll showcase different people's work, also that maybe they come up with the same answer but use a totally different process, and we discuss is there one that's better, or does it matter, or whatever. And I don't know if I went on a totally different track there, but there you go. Okay, so
that's
Whiteboard
incredible.
Chat, better for math teachers than Jamboard. Well, okay, so yes, if it depends on your purpose. Okay, so Whiteboard Chat I think is way more powerful than Jamboard. And if you wanted to use it with younger kids, it's also fine, because you can limit the tools that are available. Because Whiteboard Chat, when you first get into there's 100 tools that are on the left, or maybe not 100, but something like that. But you, in the settings as a teacher, you can limit them to just have 4 tools, select or draw and type or something like that. And that's it. That's all they can see. But also for math notation, so if you wanted to get them to type, they can type using math, the I don't know, the formulas or whatever. You can do that in there as well. So that works as well. So yeah, and you can also collaborate, because I know Jamboard is a big thing for collaboration. So you can create group boards as well with Whiteboard Chat. Okay, to do that, that's sort of off the thing of pre-assessment. But anyway, yes,
okay.
There you go.
It's all right, Mel. Ladies and gents, if you have not dove into whiteboard.chat, I would encourage you to do so, because honestly, I use it. I'm an English teacher and I've used it a couple of times, but I've been able to see what Mel is doing with her students with it, and it's the possibilities are endless, and she's doing some incredible stuff. She's released some really awesome videos on her Twitter, so you can go follow her at Funguli if you have any questions. And she's also the type of person that would be more than happy to share that. And also whiteboard.chat allows you to chat with the students in real time, whereas Jamboard, it does not have that feature. And so I think that if you're curious, dive in.
It also has a video conference tool within it. So it's super powerful, I think, as a tool. It has a lot of different things that I wouldn't have discovered if it would not work for Mel. So thank you, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, I really think we should take a moment to talk about all the cool stuff that she's been doing with it. And for real, yes, definitely follow at Funguli. I did not know anything about this whiteboard product at all. And honestly, everything I've learned about it, I've learned from Mel, and she's just doing some amazing stuff with it. If you are not checking your stuff out, you really need to, because it's pretty like mind blowing.
Yeah,
So
I randomly tried it just because she's forever sending me, hey, this worked. This is cool because we both teach math.
Yeah.
So I randomly just tried it on the fly one day this week in the middle of an unplanned observation. That's good for your anxiety, I'll tell you. But my admin loved it because I can see what the kids are saying. I have a lot of very shy, very anxious students. I can see what they're doing without them having to call out everything and speak in front of others because they're so afraid they're going to get it wrong in front of other people. And so this gave me an opportunity where I can see it live on my screen and then, okay, this is a good one, you know, and then they don't have to worry about me. And if they do say something that's incorrect, I can say, oh, well, how would we make this right? How could we fix this without outing them as making a mistake?
Yeah,
and it's all
absolutely.
thanks to this one right up there.
Mhm.
All thanks to this right there.
That way. Over there. Yeah. She's epic, guys. Follow her. Get some deets. And guys, it's not just for math, it's for science. They have science notations. They have you could do different grids. You know, I know we're global GEG leaders, and so we should be pushing the Google for Education platforms, and Jamboard is a great tool. However, Jamboard has its limitations, and whiteboard.chat is coming in strong, I think, with a lot of really great, responsive, effective tools. Before we transition, there's one more alternative assignment from an English teacher's perspective that I wanted to kind of maybe mention. If you don't know me, you know I'm obsessed with Adobe for Education. And I have used Adobe Spark, which is free to K through 12 teachers. And they do have an Adobe Spark classroom. So your students' work can all be housed in one area. You know, talking about alternative assessments, there is some value. You know, Mel mentioned a second ago that idea of like, oh, her students can't define exponents, right? And she's like, but you can draw them. The same is true in English, right? Some students really struggle to get their words from their head and articulate them onto, you know, the computer or onto paper. Adobe Spark is a great, Adobe Spark Video or Adobe Spark Page is a great housing platform for photo essays, portfolios, you know, giving it, giving your students opportunity to express themselves in different from just here's a Google Doc, write your essay, or here's a pen and paper, write your essay. Allow them to take that creative side of themselves and make those connections, right? I am trying, for example, if I'm doing an argumentative essay, students could jump in, and if they have a position or a platform, they can have, you know, with an Adobe video, they can pop up images, they can record themselves kind of verbally sharing their expression about like their position, and they could have a series of images that's pop up that kind of goes along. So not only are they expressing themselves audibly, but also they're allowing the audience or whoever's reading to get a visual stimulation as well. So I'm a huge fan. I would recommend that everybody jump on. Maria, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I'll let you finish with Adobe Spark, but I was going to talk about another product. Okay,
I am done, but if you have not checked out Spark, you should. Go ahead,
I use it for my Innovator application, actually.
Hey,
Nice.
Adobe Spark. There you go. Book Creator is another good piece of software for kids to use all across all year levels. Even the littlies are great for using it. They can talk into it. There's drawing tools. It's got the auto draw combined in with it. You can bring in video. It's a great, easy to use tool. You can set up a class set as well. So
yeah,
good for
yeah,
instruction
for sure.
and for students.
And collaborative too.
Oh yeah, that's the best part, and it's real-time collaboration, and it's so intuitive and easy. I mean, just a couple buttons and you can make your book you're creating like just epic. And you know what else I think you could use it for if we're talking assessment? Sorry, you got me started, guys, and then we're going to transition. Yeah. But if we're talking about Book Creator, you can totally give students the opportunity to, like, as they're going along the unit, whatever notes they're taking, whatever concepts they're working with, practice problems, whatever it may be, they could be, compiling that in a book. And then when they get to that assessment piece, that summative piece, maybe you could use Book Creator as like a reference tool, right? And it's not like they're cheating because they have compiled this these resources. So it's all from their brain and it's them using
Mm.
their own knowledge, but they're doing what we do and they're writing it on a Post-it note or a book creator, piece. So something interesting, some thoughts. All right, we're going to go ahead and, a lot of people in the chat, new people, we're welcome to see you. We'll throw our bit.ly for the slide deck if you want to follow along in just a second. But we're going to transition into the next step, which is this idea of clarity and communication. Clarity and communication. And so we're going to have Mel take over again and kick us off.
Greetings all. I know you're so excited to hear from me again because I am super amazing. Okay, so clarity and communication. So I've got two things on this slide, as you can see with the epic gifts, and I'm sorry if they're like blowing your mind because they're giving me a headache, but hopefully they're not for you. Okay, so like the first thing I noted on there was daily agenda with slides. So basically right now we've just transitioned back to hybrid / high flex / alternancia, whatever it's called. So I've got kids that are at home and also in school, and we don't know who's going to be where and when, basically, which is some good times. Anyway, having a daily agenda is like a consistent place where kids can go to, like I post in Google Classroom, basically, and they can just find out like what we're doing for any class. So they can go there and they can access, okay, they just click on today's date. They can see whatever links they need for the lesson, the order of what we're doing, things in, the learning intention. And of course, like if they're absent as well, they can't connect during that class, they're not at school at that point, they can also just go to the daily agenda and find out what they need or what they've missed, basically. So I find that really handy. And I know that, maybe you see like those little screenshots there and you're like, oh, that looks complicated. It's got so many buttons. How do I do this? So basically like Slides Mania, which I've linked in the slide deck there, has epic templates for daily or weekly planners, however it works for you. I use daily planners because my classes are sort of everywhere and they have classes at all different times. So it's a bit crazy. I tried to do a weekly one, but that was not working. And so I just have a daily one for my classes right now. I also have the template for what I use with all my crazy buttons and stuff. If that also suits you, that is there too for your, I don't know, for your access and enjoyment and whatever it is that you might want it for. The other thing, so this is Edpuzzle. Okay, so this sort of links in, I guess, with the pre-assessment part that we did before as well. That the fact that Edpuzzle is really useful, basically, to see like where the kids are at, like without having to do it. So sometimes, like obviously during class time, you can sort of see where kids are at, but it's really good to know it like before the class happens. So as a homework task or whatever, I love giving like a guided Edpuzzle, sort of takes them through like the main concept that's going to be covered like in the next lesson, and gives me a good idea and also them an idea of like how much they understand from the concept, what do we need to go over, what do we need to focus on for like the next lesson. So it's really good for preparation. So like maybe you're going into a new unit and you're like, okay, I'm not sure what they need to know for this or what they know, because a lot of the times like I ask the previous teachers and they'll be like, yes, we did this, 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 and this basically with them. I was like, oh, okay, fantastic. So they're going to know all of that. So, but of course, you go into the lesson and they're like, we were never taught that. We don't know any of that. So Edpuzzle is a good way to sort of gauge that, so you don't get into the class and then not all like, we don't know anything, we forgot everything. So yeah, so Edpuzzle is really useful for that. And you can see my amazing screenshots there. Like you can do lots of different types of questions with Edpuzzle, like open-ended, multiple choice, and put random notes in there, have your voice in there as well. So like communication, like maybe you want to make it more personalized, but you don't want to record a video of yourself because there's so many people that have created amazing videos out there. So I like to add random notes in there and add audio notes of me saying like, hey, remember this part is super important. Hey, how are you going there? I hope you're doing okay. Remember, you should actually take notes at this part because it's actually important. So actually hear me interrupting them at random points, probably like, oh, Miss Aveling, she's spying on me, or maybe not. But anyway, it's like another communication thing, and it links in with Google Classroom too. So like if you have a grade book thing in there as well. So it is a good thing. I think I just blabbed on all the things. So I'm just going to stop there, and yeah, Shannon, you can just take it back. Thanks.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think what you were saying is great. Like you you know, you give yourself a hard time here, but you have some great things that you're doing to try to keep your kids on track and be clear about where you're heading. And then ultimately, when and necessary, you know, with those ed puzzles, you know, you can communicate, okay, here's where most of us are. Let's go ahead and move forward. And I know you've been an inspiration with your daily agenda, because I use it now. I've used since you shared with me. And Pilly, did you want to add to that? Did you have a?
Yeah, I was gonna say that because Mel just mentioned that she put the templates there that she uses, and I just want to say that take advantage of it. I did when she shared it with me, and now my kids, which I mentioned before, who are like super cheaters, I love them to death, but that's what they are. They actually did love the structure, and that helps them to, like, in case they're missing an assignment or something, they just go back to the day and they have the link. And Shannon, you also mentioned how you have to have the link, so you just share it right there, right? I started doing that same thing with the agenda, and instead of them having to go to classroom where they always get lost, it doesn't matter how arranged the topics, they get lost on them. I have to specify them, but if I throw in the link in the agenda, they find it super fast. So it's super useful to have it. The kids have been loving it, so thank you, Mel, because that, if it wasn't for you. I was gonna ask you about Edpuzzle though. You said like not everybody needs to make their own videos. Do you make your own videos to use them for before class, or do you just check somebody else's and adapt it?
I always look first beforehand to see what there's out there, because I mean, like, for what I'm teaching, most of the stuff that people have already made videos, and like my grade 12s are obsessed with this person called Nancy Pye from like MIT or something. Maybe, I don't know, for certain reasons the guys like her. Anyway, so like she explains stuff really clearly. So they're like, oh, is this another Nancy Pye video? And I was like, yes, it is. How did you know? And sometimes it's like, no, sorry, I couldn't find anything with her, so you've just got me. And they're like, oh. And I was like, but it's the same like with my grade nines. I'll look for content. I'll look for content first, because there's a lot of stuff there. Like, most people have made a heap of videos, and all the stuff like also from YouTube, you can get the stuff from there, and most people have already created stuff there. It's only if you do weird topics like what we just did with number bases with grade 9, then I had to make some of my own stuff. But I keep the video short. It's super easy just to upload and add questions in there. And yeah.
I use a lot
Absolutely.
of the Crash Core ones, and because I love Hank Green.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, so I use those. I feel like he explains with like the same type of language that I use when I explain, so that's why I like using those, because I think it's like a reference to what they're gonna hear from me.
He has a great TikTok as well, if you're not following it, Hank Green. Anyway, sorry.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna move us a little bit with a new question. So we had a question come through from CWN18. He said, "Has anyone asked yet about the pros and cons of learning online versus learning in person in a class?" Now, although that doesn't necessarily have to do with this like pre-instruction kind of focus or the process, I do think it's worth having a conversation about, because every single one of us throughout the course of this live stream have mentioned this idea of teaching online versus teaching, you know, simulcast, or teaching, you know, face-to-face with masks, whatever it may be. But sometimes we forget about the learning piece, the learners. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I think it fits perfectly with clarity and communication. What has to shift for our students to be effective or successful when they're teaching online versus when they're teaching in person? And ultimately, what are the pros and cons? And obviously, none of us are experts in all areas, but we have some insight, I'm sure, at least collectively from all of us. What are your guys' thoughts?
Most of it, I think, the mindset of the kids, like of the kids, of the teachers, and the parents. If the school supports that, usually teachers are the ones that want to innovate, and schools are the ones that prevent them, because they're used to a certain structure and they don't want to change that. So if the school gives them a little bit of leash, you know, to do their own thing, and they very likely would be able to help the kids think differently. And the school just has to support that, and therefore when the parents come in, you know, like, because they always do, the school can say like, we're looking for what is best for your kids, and this is what's gonna help, etc. So I think that my problem, for instance, the one that I have with my kids not being interested and everything, it has a lot to do with the fact that the way that the school has handled things, that we have full schedule every day online, kids are tired.
Yeah.
And the parents demand this. The parents are the ones that demand this, like they want to see the teacher working. They want to see the kids connected, because otherwise what are they doing? And so this has tired the kids, and obviously the teachers to no end of it too. And this also has affected the learning process. They're like, I don't care, I'll just do, I need to get the grade. Grades, the structure of grading hasn't changed either, so they're gonna do whatever is needed to get the number that they think it's the one that they need to get.
Yeah.
And yeah, some fatigue.
Yeah.
And what needs to change is the mindset. If we don't focus on the grades, if we make them focus on the demonstrating what you've learned, on the this is going to be helpful for you, for your growth, to change that. It's a cultural shift a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it has to do with convincing the school leaders and then the parents, and it's a big job for the teachers to do. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's possible, but it requires a lot of effort.
Yeah, and I do want to also kind of talk about the pros of online learning versus in-class learning. I think everybody here would say that, traditional face-to-face is the best. We all want to be back. I'm with Billy in the sense that we haven't been teaching face-to-face since March. We've been online virtual here in California, in our county. But what I've noticed a little bit is I'm hearing a lot more from my more quiet, passive, introverted students than I used to hear from them. That demographic face to face, and I think it's because as teachers are trying to navigate that idea of how do we get kids engaged, we're starting to be more mindful about the fact that the one or two answers gets a little stale, and you want to hear from everybody. And so I've been using the Zoom chat quite a bit. We teach with Zoom. I have been using Flipgrid quite a bit. I've talked before about the waterfall chat, and that's really been awesome because I'm hearing every single voice come through. And those students who normally would be passive or kind of just let the learning happen to them rather than interact with it, I'm seeing a lot more co-creation of knowledge and learning, and they're really stepping up to the plate because they're given a space where they feel comfortable speaking out. So while I think I'd rather be face-to-face, I do think that when I do get back face-to-face, I am going to be very, very mindful about offering opportunity for my quieter students to add to the discussion in a way that maybe isn't traditional, using equity cards, raising their hands, calling on people, volunteering. Maybe I'll have a back channel chat. Maybe I'll have an opportunity for them to take a space and go do a Flipgrid or something to offer that alternative choice so that I can hear from every voice and every learner. So it hasn't been terrible, but it's like I said, not ideal.
This thing that you've mentioned about the kids that usually don't come forward. We just did a change in schedule, and we used to have certain times of tutoring times, like office hours, but there were open meets where the kids would, if they wanted, they would join and ask, but they would never join. I'd have 2 days a week, 20 minutes on the meet alone, and now we changed to having different times, office hours, and it's pretty much every day. And I didn't want to have a meet open for that, so I told my my leader, you know what, can I do appointment slots? And she's like, I don't think that's gonna be good, but let me tell you that I've had more kids through appointment slots than I had through the months that we had the meet open for tutorings. They come in better because they know they're gonna be on their own, like only them and me. They ask whatever it is the question. It's 10 minutes that I give them, but sometimes it's less than that, in 2 minutes, and they feel more comfortable approaching me on, in private, rather to be exposed. They wouldn't even know if there was somebody else there, but they would feel exposed, I guess. And I've had more kids now through the appointment slots, which has been wonderful.
Well, we want to thank CW918 who's watching, I believe, on Twitch. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and continue for time's sake. We know we usually try to stick to an hour, but it's been a really rich conversation. And we have one more kind of little piece. So we're going to move to organization and structure. And you are going to hear from Pili again about some of the structure tools, organizational tools that she uses to support her students.
Okay, yeah, I know I'm a pain. All right, so I'm going to talk to you about using calendar for a project. When you're planning for a project, usually what I think about as a teacher is like, how can I help my kids stay on deadlines? So I've done this before. What I did was I created a calendar, and when you access the slide deck, you can see I made it into a gift for you to see the step-by-step of how to create a calendar. So you can create a calendar so the deadlines can be blocks of time that you can share in with your classrooms, and it would appear in their classroom calendar. So you create it as an appointment with a certain period of time of like 2 weeks, maybe in an all day type of appointment. And then you put in the invite as guests. Google gives you directly the group of people that would be on your classroom, so you can just link your classrooms into it, and in their own calendar, whenever that thing is due, or as a notification, if it's on their calendar, they can check it out, like how long do they have to do a certain part of the project. So this helps you to plan, and it helps them to keep focus on. And in the case of the classroom, when you're doing your planning for your unit or your week, or however it is that you do planning, if you like to have like superly structured planning ahead, you can have all the assignments that you have in mind to make as drafts. And so you can put it as a draft in one of your classrooms, or put it as a draft in all of your classrooms, and just go ahead and assign it at the time that you're going to assign it. You're in class and you're like, for today, you're going to do this. You just go click, edit the assignment, and then assign it, or you can schedule it. The only thing that Classroom doesn't let us do, which is very sad, is to schedule for several classrooms. Not yet. So I hope that soon they are going to fix that. But yeah, this is a way that you can then you can say plan ahead of the things that you're going to be doing, and it helps the kids to stay focused and on deadlines.
That's awesome. That's really great. And those tutorials, once again, they're in our slide deck. You're welcome to follow that. We will also push it out after the show, and so that you can grab that. We'll have that ready for you guys. So we're winding down. It is time to maybe kind of move on. I do want to give you guys the opportunity, those listening and watching, to pose any questions that you might have. Listen, we may not be able to answer them today, but we will absolutely get to them on our next, Ask Us Anything live. So Confucius once said, and this is really important because I was always the person that was like, no, my question's dumb. It's not good enough. Like, I should just know it. But Confucius said the person who asks a question is a fool for a minute. So you may feel foolish for that moment, but the person who does not ask is a fool for life. We have to, bind together and, hashtag better together. So let us help you. And in the process, maybe you'll allow us to research some EdTech tools that maybe we weren't familiar with. And we would be happy to do this with you. So post those in the chat for us, please. And just an FYI, we are actually bi-monthly. We changed our focus from monthly to bi-monthly. And so every 2 months we'll come together. We are going to be talking about, like, during the lesson, some EdTech tools to really maximize the learning for the students and increase efficiency, and maybe give back some sanity to the teacher. We are going to be changing that date. Originally, it was scheduled for April, so stay tuned. And we will be happy to kind of share that. We're going to be posting a feedback form here in the chat in a bit. If you guys will give us some feedback, we'd love that. And then also, let's plan on connecting. The conversation doesn't have to end here. You can connect with us at any of our individual Twitters, or you can follow at Ask Us Anything ET on Twitter, at Ask Us Anything ET on Twitter, and we'd be happy to connect with you that way. We're a big fan all of us here on this panel are big fans of learning together. And so I just really, really appreciate you all being here tonight. And without further ado, we will say goodbye and thank you. Talk to you soon.
Yep, keep waving. I gotta find the banner. No, yep, keep doing the thing where you waving and waving. It's here. And
thank you so much for coming to today's Global GEG presentation. Make sure you go to our website at globalgeg.org to find more information and ways to connect with us. One way you can connect with us is going to the website and joining our Google group. This will allow you to get a weekly email about upcoming events that Global GEG is hosting. Don't forget, you can share this recording with other educators or revisit it at any time at the same YouTube link. If you need a certificate of attendance, make sure you fill out the feedback form. Thank you again for joining us at Global GEG.